Hi friends, in this video I will show you all Python MongoDB commands, like how you can connect to the MongoDB server, how you can create new database, how you can add, edit, remove, query the data inside MongoDB. So there will be a lot of cool stuff in terms of coding. Let's start coding. So I assume that you already installed the MongoDB driver, Python driver in your computer, which is Pymongo. So let's just import that first. Pymongo, and Pymongo is the key driver that we gonna use throughout this video series, and without that you can't proceed. Okay, so let's start. First we should make a connection with our database, and to make connection you should create a variable named connection. So connection, and in that connection you can take Pymongo dot, and you can use Mongo client, and in that Mongo client you need to pass two main argument, and first one is the host name or IP address of the MongoDB server where your MongoDB is installed, and the second one is the port number where your MongoDB is communicating outside the server, okay, in your network or wherever. So let's just, in our case we are hosted in our local host, and the port we are using is the default one, which is 27017. Okay, so with that our connection is ready. The second step is you need to create a database. So there is two cases: either you are using the existing database or you want to create a new database. So there is two things. So let's just see our database now in the Compass IDE, and in our previous video we already installed this Compass IDE, so you can follow the previous video if you haven't installed this in your computer, because this is very useful where we can see the cool stuff related to MongoDB. So in our case right now we have only one database, and the name of database is my database, and rest of the database is actually dedicated for MongoDB, so don't mess with this, just create the new one. Okay, so let's just create a new database, and I will name my database is database equal to in my connection, and you can provide the name of the database. So here I can say my DB, something like this, my DB01. So what will happen, this Python will actually look for my DB01 into MongoDB, and if MongoDB this database is not exist, then create the new one for you. Very useful. Okay, and if you want to use the existing database, which is my database already created here, then you can just use this name here, then your connection will establish with this database. So this thing you should remember. Okay, so let's just create the new one, don't mess with the existing one. So my DB01, and at this time when you execute that, even let's just go and execute this. So what will happen, even if you try to refresh, this DB is not created, and the reason is a empty database is not actually allowed inside MongoDB. So you need to actually create some collections inside your database to actually this database to be appear inside your MongoDB server. So for that we need to create a collection. So collection equals to, now we need to take the database which we created, and here we need to provide the name of the collection, which is my collection 01. Okay, the name can be upper and lower, it doesn't matter, but I will use lower. So my DB01, my collection 01. Okay, now let's just run this and let's see if we can see something here. Refresh. No, we haven't seen anything. So with that, we created a connection, we created a database, we created a collection, but now we need to add something into that collection. So that means at third level, we need to add a document inside our collection. So for that, we will create a quick function, and in that function, we will create the data. Okay, so wait, let me just take this aside, so at least we have something. Okay, so now let's just create some sample data, and sample data is, for example, name, that's it. So this is just very simple random data, and then this data, oh sorry, I just closed this should not, because we need to see this data, so that's why we cannot just close, we can just minimize, we can just resize that. Okay, so now we have a data, and let's just put this data into our collection. So collection dot, and if you see the options available for this collection is inside collection, you can find, delete one, update one, all interesting stuff will be appear here, but here we are interested to insert. Okay, so here you see insert one, and you can insert many, but now we have one data, so let's just put insert one and then pass the data. Sorry, what happened to my keyboard? Okay, so insert one data. So now inside collection, we should have this data, right? Let's just run. Okay, let's just refresh. Perfect. Now we are seeing my DB01 appear inside MongoDB server, and if you open that, you see my collection 01 is also appeared there, and if you click there, you will see name Rajiv. The data is successfully added, no issue. Perfect. So as you see, with this, all this is very easy to communicate with the MongoDB data. Now let's see, if you want to add one more, you can just run this. Once you run, you will see that in your collection, so why this is my collection, as you can see that there is two, but these names are same. So either you can come here and you can edit this, something like okay, let's just update that, so that now your data is updated directly from IDE. But from here, if you want to add a new data with some different name, you can just use that also. So run database operation, and then you just refresh that and click on my DB collection one, and here you can see the new data is appearing there. So now what we're gonna do, we will put this inside a function. So that function will be def create, or maybe, you know what, since you guys understand the basic understanding of how the Python and MongoDB is talking to each other, I will actually just take my existing database operation file and paste it here, and then I will explain you each one by one. So with that, we can quickly see the theory of entire MongoDB. Okay, so guys, since we already built this application, I already built this application maybe 2-3 days back, and now I'm creating this video tutorial to explain you guys how you can actually build that. So that's why I have all the code ready for you. And one more interesting thing, guys, all this code will be available in my Git repository. I will upload to my github.com/vfx pipeline. Okay, so there you can grab this code and you can use same copy paste, use in your project, do it whatever you want. Okay, so let's back to the topic, database operations. So in database operation, here you can see you can connect to the database, and this is the IP and port, and then you create a database, then you create a collection with this. And I just use print database connected because if up to now everything is fine, then I want to show I want to print this like, okay, your database is connected. That's it. Then we have a function called insert data, and insert data is required one argument, which is a data, and this data should be the dictionary format, the JSON format. And with that, like just now I showed you collection.insert one, and this will do that. But there is one more interesting thing. With this function, you actually return the ID. So whatever new document that you created, you can actually get back the ID of that newly created object. So let's just quickly create a new object inside our database. So let's just, my data equals to for example name, maybe HP, okay, and then create insert data. Okay, let's just run this. So all done, right? But this is let me just drop this database, and this database is my DB 01 drop. So let's just go to the my database, my collection, and we have HP here. But the thing is, this HP is created with a ID. And this is what you should actually you should know, that by default this ID key or this ID is automatically generated by MongoDB, and this is a unique ID for each document inside MongoDB. But you can override this if you want if you want this ID to be user defined, like if you want to define your own ID for your document, you can do that. You have to provide this underscore ID inside your data. So let's just do that. So let's just do underscore ID equals to, and then this will be my ID should be, for example, okay, so this should be my ID and this should be my name, and let's just run this. Okay, all good. Now we go to the database again, my collection, and here you see, now you are not seeing this object ID and this weird hash, I don't know, hash or what, this weird ID. So at least you have some user defined ID for your documents, and with that you can do that. But there will be one issue with this kind of thing, and the issue is you cannot use the same ID for other documents. So you must have some sort of mechanism where you can generate a random ID, and when you are damn sure that my ID will be unique in all kind of situation, for example employee ID, passport number, whatever. Okay, so if you don't do that, if you provide the same ID, so let's see what MongoDB gonna do. MongoDB will say, hey, you cannot create this document because there is a duplicate error will become. So with that, you can create by different ID but not the same ID. So different ID easily create, same ID it will not create. So here you can see you created that. So most of the time we don't want to mess with the ID, because whatever ID generated by MongoDB is good enough and we will use those ID. But the question might be like, if we created a new data and for some reason we want to know the ID of that document, so there you can actually get the ID of that newly created document, and you can see that ID equals to this, and then print ID. And here we will get the ID, and the reason is, if you go to this function, we are returning a document dot inserted ID. With that, you can actually return the ID of the newly created object, newly created document, right? Okay, let's just run this, and now you are able to see this is the ID 911B. 911, wow, what a number, 911. Here you see 911B is already created, and we get the ID in our Python, so we can do whatever we want with that. Okay, so this is the insert data function, which required a data argument in JSON format. Right now, if we want to update the existing data, so how you can do that? So to update the existing data, first thing you must have the ID of that document, and then the new data that you want to update. So in our case, let's say we have this data which we already created, and this is the ID that we get. Okay, so let's just update or create, and we'll provide the document ID, and then we will provide the new data. So data, and this time HP we will change to Dell. So you remember our 911 is HP, but now we will change it to Dell. Let's just do it. Right click, run database operation. Perfect, no error so far, everything good. Let's just go there, see, here we go. So our HP is now converted to Dell because we rename and we provide the object ID, and then we rename. Let's just go back to this function and see how this magic happened. And here we see collection dot update 1. So we are saying that, hey, in this collection update 1, here is the ID, here is the ID. And when you are using ID, this thing I want to mention here, you cannot just provide a string value of the document ID as it is. You need to convert that ID into object ID, and so you should use this syntax here, otherwise you will see some weird errors, right? You don't want to see weird errors, so you should use object ID. And from where you will get this object ID? If you use MongoDB, you will get something like Bison, and from Bison you import object ID. Okay, so then with this object ID class, you can provide the document ID, and it will convert the string to some object ID and pass to the MongoDB, and MongoDB understand that, okay, yeah, this is the document, and I will give you that. And if you don't know about Bison, Bison is a binary format of the JSON. So MongoDB is actually using Bison to store the data actually. So binary format of JSON is Bison. Okay, so then you should use this $set data and $sort data. Sorry, we are actually yes, we are correct. $set data. This is this. Here we are providing our data. So, and without this you cannot set your data, you cannot update that. So you can just take this and copy paste this entire functions and use it. Don't think so much. At the end we are actually returning the acknowledged. So here we don't want object ID to be returned. Here we want just to acknowledge that is it done or not done, and if it is done, just return true. If it is not, return false. So if you try to print this part, then it will return true or false, something like that. Okay, now next thing is we have get single data, and the get single data is very interesting. Here we are actually getting the data from the database, and here we just we just create one single field like name. But if you have maybe 50 fields or 100 fields with one document ID, you can retrieve the data. So how are we going to do that? Let's just do that. So instead of that, we will say get single data, and this, let's just put this inside a variable and then print this variable. Let's just run this. Perfect. So here you can see we just provide the ID, and based on that we are actually retrieve all the data from the database. So with that you can get the data. There is another one which is get multiple data, and multiple data is here we are interested to see all the data inside our collection, right? All the objects or all the documents inside our collection that we want to know that. So let's just, for that you just provide get multiple data. So maybe just we don't need ID, because if you want single then you have to provide ID. If you want everything you just say get multiple data, and this will give you all. So here you will get a list of all the objects. So here you can see this is a list. Actually this is a list of JSON objects. Okay, well, now with that we get multiple data and update existing. So with update existing, okay, there is one thing that I want to clarify with these two functions, update existing on create or update, because this looks like same, but there is one difference. So this is also doing update 1 and this is also doing update 1 with object ID, with set data, everything fine. But here we are using one argument which is upset true. And what this mean is, if you are trying to find a if you're trying to update a document inside your collection with some particular ID, so MongoDB will try to update that particular ID into the MongoDB database. If that ID, if any document with that ID is not exist, then it will create a new one with the data that you are providing. Okay, so this is very important if you want to actually avoid the duplicates. So it will just look for your ID, particular ID. If it does not exist, create new one. That's it. Very simple, right? Okay. So next thing is remove data. And remove data is, since this much thing, removing data is very simple. Just delete. Provide the object ID and delete it. That's it. That's what you want to do, right? Delete the database and get the acknowledged. Is it deleted or not deleted? If it is deleted, just say true. So you can actually take this acknowledge and pass to your application, and then you can actually do whatever you want. But one thing you should remember, after end of your database operation, you should close the connection. So you connect to the database, you do your operation and close the connection. So with that, database is free and serve other connections. So I think this is it for this MongoDB data operation file, and you can take this file from my GitHub, so you can also see this entire code and use these functions in your application. Okay, so next thing, we will create a custom model for our application where we will load the MongoDB data in queue table view. Okay, so let's go to the next video. I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.